Hey, everybody. Welcome to Love and Relo, the voice of the relocation industry. I am your host, Ben Cross, and I am so excited to be here today talking to you. We are joined by the illustrious, the innovative Chris Roberts, Director of Innovation from Ayers. He's a really bright guy. I ran into this guy at Worldwide ERCs, GWS, last in Boston. Last time we were real people in the real world. Ran into him and met for like 5 minutes, and I was instantly like enamored with this guy's brain. So I love talking to smart people. So today should fly by. Can't wait to ask him all sorts of questions about innovation and just the way that we think, the way that we design, the way that we execute. So really excited about that. Can't wait to hear your questions for Chris. Before we get started and bring Chris out, though, I do want to plug something that's so dang exciting. Janet, can we get that grab? Oh my gosh, she's amazing. Super producer Janet, big shout to you. We've got the best trivia ever coming up on Friday. Best period trivia period ever period to benefit Move for Hunger. This is so exciting. Presented by National Van Lines. We're doing it right here. So exciting. We got a 500 real USD US dollar cash prize on Friday. Real money, Davey. Okay. If you anybody out there, any movie fans. Anyway, it's going to be amazing. It's free to play. That is like the best part. It's free to play. You win $500, real money. Me and my co-host Tanya Maritini are going to be up here. We're going to be asking questions. A lot of them are hunger related. Some are mobility related, but not too many that you couldn't invite your friends and family and whatever. You know, just tell everybody you know about it. We have a goal. I really, really, really want to get 1,000 people playing this game. You're like, Ben, you're crazy. You're smoking something. Maybe. All right. But it's my show. Okay, everybody. I want to get 1,000 people playing this game at one time. So what I need for each of you to do, if you're watching this right now, and I know a bunch of you are because I'm seeing the numbers coming, Chris, a popular dude. I'm very blessed. I want you to all go to the Move for Hunger page on LinkedIn. Okay. And I want you to share that event with 10 of your friends. Okay, we're giving away $500. It's trivia. It's Kahoot. It's gonna be on your phone. You don't have to see your face. People are like, Ben, do I gotta be on TV? No, you don't gotta be on TV. You can do this in your boxer shorts, sitting at home, doing whatever you're doing. And Friday at 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock Eastern, download Kahoot. Let's play the game together here on Love and Relo. It's gonna be a blast as usual, and somebody's going to walk away with $500. So please go to Move for Hunger's LinkedIn page. Make sure to share it with people. There's an event on there. All you got to do is tune into Love and Relo Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern. Me and Tanya Maritini from Expedia. What up, T? We're going to go ahead and do some trivia. It's going to be dope. Anyway, without further ado, the man, the myth, the guest, Chris Roberts from Ayers. Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hey, good. How are you?
I'm just really working on your intro. I've been really boning it up. Any feedback there? Did I get it?
Oh, it was epic. It was epic.
All right, awesome. I want you to snip that, and I want you to make it your little LinkedIn sound that you can put on your name.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be dope.
It's awesome. I need to find a way. To at some point when I move on from Ayers and 20 years from now. To have that clip so I can be like this.
Yeah, this guy's a futurist. He's already thinking about the next step. Sorry, Jolene.
That's right. But it's 20 years. 20 years.
20 years. No, but man, it's so cool to have you here because I watch the stuff that you put on LinkedIn. I love the thoughtful stuff you put out there. A lot of people put out like stuff shilling their company or self-promotional stuff. But what I love about the content that you put out is you put out kind of like how-to content, and it's like very carefully curated. So like what smart people think is smart is oftentimes the best content to read. Some of the stuff you put out, I mean, what are some of the things that you've been putting out recently? Just put people on if you don't mind.
I think one of them recently that I was talking a lot about was just the mindset that you need to have if you go after any kind of change, because I think a lot of times we discount the fact that mindset is a huge part of pursuing successful change. And so I put a post out there the other day that just said, hey, here's a couple of tips to help you think about that. And it's funny because it was just from this like quick side conversation that I had with a friend the day before. And I'm like, that would work as a post. I'm going to put that out there. So
Fabulous. I love it. I really do. We got people chiming in right now with comments. Give Chris a shout out. Hit that like button, throw him a little heart, send him some love. Okay. Give yourself a shout out in the comments. Love to hear from you. Also love to hear your questions right now. Ask questions, leave comments. We'll discuss it live. It's scrolling if you can't keep up. We got people here. Lynn Greenberg, woohoo, go Chris, checking in from New York. Pivot app. What up, Lynn?
Hey,
Jamie
Lynn.
Masler. Hi, Ben and Chris. Cheers from sunny Mississippi. Jamie's out there. Francine Dresty. Hi, Ben, Chris, and Janet. Excited for the show today. Checking in from St. Louis. Janet's out backstage raising the roof for Francine. I love it. I see you, Janet. Oh, this is great. You guys get me so excited. People checking in from Arizona. Sandra Clary, what a great session this will be. Great topic, Ben and Chris. Thank you, Sandra. Sandra's with a technology company. My dad checking in. Love the chaparral tie tack. Is that a ruby? Dad, why are you asking questions you know the answer to? You know it's a ruby, man. My dad gave me his quick story. This right here is it's a Roadrunner, actually. You can't see it. But it's a Roadrunner. It's actually a family heirloom. My dad's uncle passed away, and he was like supposedly like this guy that was like a real wheeler dealer guy. And he like lost and like made fortunes and stuff over like won a plantation in a poker game or something, Guatemala or something. I don't know. Crazy dude. But anyway, I got this Roadrunner tie tack with a ruby in it. I was like, my dad's like, you want this? And I'm like, not really, but he sent it to me. And like now I wear it all the time. So
it's good luck. It's good luck.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Dad. Let's see. Sherry's checking in from Houston. Let's see. Simon Johns. That's a massive clash with the shirt and the tie. I love it. You know what, Simon, you're a massive clash. Get out of my comments. I love you, Simon. I'm just kidding. Tracy Dunor, New Jersey in the house. What up, Jersey? Sandra. Olivia. Hi, Ben and Chris. Looking forward to hearing Chris's insights into innovation now and into the future. Let's start there, right? So your title is Director of Innovation. That's a really fancy title, but what the heck do you really do, Chris? Okay, the jig is up right here, right now. What do you really do?
Yeah, the curtain is being pulled back. So it's an ever-evolving thing, I will say. So, and when I look at the couple years that I've spent with Airs, what I initially started doing is drastically different than where I am right now, which is kind of a cool thing. Essentially, if you were to boil it all down, essentially what I do is I help people across our organization as well as our clients to think differently and to go about different ways of solving problems. And so I use things like design thinking, I use things like Agile to help put into place frameworks that are just help people think and then translate that thinking into action.
Okay, I got so many questions right now. So first of all, you talk about helping people think differently. So I think of innovation, I think of like R&D and like creating and stuff like that. But it starts with thinking, doesn't it?
Right.
What's that role? Like what's the importance of thinking and mindset and things like that?
Well, I think it really has to start with problems, right? It's so easy. So we're an industry that is used to solving problems, and we're used to being quick, right? We have to be on our feet. We've got to make things happen. And while that's a great skill set, that can easily also translate into underthinking, especially with what's the actual problem that we're trying to solve. And so a lot of the times what I'm doing is jumping in and saying, okay, hold on a second. Let's make sure that we've actually framed the problem correctly, that it's actually the right problem for us to be solving at this moment. And then let's make sure we think through how we solve that in a logical manner. And sometimes that can be really fast. It might just be a quick conversation, right? And sometimes it could be maybe a meeting. Sometimes it might be a series of activities over a couple of weeks, and probably a whole myriad of other mixtures. But it's really just helping people to take a step back from maybe the typical just speed at which they're used to working and saying, let's do this right.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see what you're saying here. I mean, when you talk about solve problems, first thing that comes to my mind is we react quickly, right? We escalate things quickly, right? We make a lot of phone calls, send a lot of emails, and try to like get it sorted, right?
Yeah.
But what are we doing to prevent problems?
Right.
And how much effort, 90% is probably going into reacting and solving problems, and maybe 10% is going into preventing them. What is that work like? Like, describe for me, what is that process like? Like, let's just say there's a problem in the organization, and I imagine that this problem keeps popping up every few days, pops up a few times a month, let's say. And at first people are like, oh, that's just a one-off. That's just a one-off, right? Problems persist for like 6 months or a year. It's just a one-off. But it's like, well, you've told me that every month for the last 12 months. So,
Right.
So how do you then now they're like, okay, we better call Chris. And then Chris shows up with a cape. This is how I envision it, right? He picks open the conference door, shows up with a cape. And then what does Chris do at that point?
Well, first of all, I want to confirm that, yes, it is that dramatic. And
there's like horns, horns trumpeting in the background.
Yeah, and I've been getting feedback lately that people have had enough of the cape, so I'm going to have to rethink the approach.
Is the cape plaid? I mean, it
is plaid. I'm surprised you picked up on that. Yeah, it's plaid. No, it's funny because sometimes it is a matter of just me trying to look for where some of those problems are and then finding ways to bubble them up into conversations. Sometimes and that's actually kind of where I started initially, especially as a new person to an organization. I had to kind of start looking for where are the holes, right? And how can I help start working on them? And then sometimes too, it is people coming to you and saying, hey, I've got this challenge. Can you help me think through it? And that certainly takes some time to build up that rapport with people, right? A lot of it really is initially just starts out of just a very basic conversation of what are you trying to do, and what does success look like? And in that conversation, then I look for ways to kind of help tease out whether or not is this something that we can solve pretty quickly, or should we go into something a little bit more in depth? And so maybe I can give you an example of something a little bit more in depth. I might do something where I might say, okay, I'm going to take that problem and I'm going to build out a workshop where we're going to pull together some really key people that need to be a part of this, whether they're a stakeholder in whatever you're trying to do, or perhaps they are the end user of whatever you're trying to create or improve. And let's see if we can try to get more of a group looking at this and getting aligned around what you're trying to do, and then help also to co-create what that final solution is going to look like. And I do things like, yes, whiteboards and Post-it notes, and some of the, I think if you've done anything looking into design thinking, some of those very, I think, stereotypical components of design thinking. So you get people in a room and you do all these fancy things with Post-it notes, and people are like oohing and awing over the colors that you're using, and so the structure, as well as looking for ways to take that to the remote setting, because that's the world we live in right now, right? And trying to use new tools out there. Like there's a cool tool I use called Mural, which is basically a digital whiteboard.
Okay, I was going to ask you, because I'm over here. Let me just show you kind of what I'm working with over here. So I'm with you. I'm part of the whiteboard. Look at that thing, goes on forever. Yeah. It's like a city block.
It is.
Yeah, I alienated a lot of people in my office when I got that. But no, so what is the virtual? What is in the bat belt for the innovation director? What tools are in the toolkit, especially in a virtual environment?
Yeah, Mural. I think Mural is one of the biggest tools that I've used to really help me do what I do. There's actually a lot of whiteboard tools out there. I think the thing that I like about Mural is it's simple, and I think that's good because you need people to interact with it. And so the more complicated and the more bells and whistles, the harder it is to get people to actually use it. Yeah. And Mural is super simple. I feel like I should be totally getting some commissions from them through this segment,
Yes, exactly. But cue the Mural graphic, please.
That's right. That's right.
Copy here. Yeah. No, that's cool. Besides, he's like writing this down. Get paid for Mural.
Yes. Mural. Hey, and $500. What was that?
Yes. That was the $500 for the trivia prize, but now it's the fee from Mural. Actually, is what it is now.
It was subliminal messaging, right?
We're innovating as we go here right now. This is great. We got people checking in the comments. I want to go ahead and honor some of those people and keep the conversation going. This is your opportunity to ask Chris whatever you want to. So if you have a problem or you need help with your mindset or something and you can't afford therapy, Chris is here right now. He's not going anywhere for the next 40 minutes. So really, this is your opportunity. Checking in here, we got Molly Feldman. What's up, Molly from Florida? Casey Gale from PC Housing in San Diego. Joanna Lindstrom checking in from Sweden. Looking forward to tonight. Yes, it's late. Yes.
Hey, I actually just had a conversation with her like 40 minutes ago on LinkedIn because we connected, and she's like, "Oh, I'm hoping to make this," and I'm like, "Truly, it's okay if you don't. It's because it's I don't know, midnight for you."
It's pretty late. It's pretty late.
Thanks
What
for
time?
doing.
Yeah, that's great. Fernando, hi guys. Gabby, so ready for this discussion. When I think of innovation, my mind goes to global experiences for employees to spread business change throughout an organization, if that is the goal. So many ways to innovate. So when you hear that, Chris, when you hear Gabby there saying that, what's up, Gabby, friend of the program, former guest at Rockwell Automation. When you hear Gabby say that, where does your mind go?
You know, actually, it sort of takes me back to, I think the sort of philosophical change that I've had with respect to innovation that happened when I started AIRS. So I
Can
joined.
you take us back there too, because you kind of alluded to that, how your roles evolved. Take us back, take us all the way back to how did you even get started at AIRS, and then how your role has evolved.
Okay, so I had about 15 years prior to AIRS in various roles across design and technology, and I've had the opportunity to design all kinds of things, from just your typical graphic design and marketing work. That's where I started in my career, to then eventually getting into software and systems, maybe being things where maybe you're connecting physical things with digital things, and then also getting into things like organizational development. And
dude, hold on a second. You went from graphic design to software design to basically like what, training design, process design? Like,
right.
What the heck do these all have in common besides the word design? Like, how did you make that leap?
Sure. So the common denominator is people. And so within design, one of the best parts I think about design is this goal of trying to understand people. And in order to be able to both help them go from kind of existing situations to preferred ones, but also doing in a way that maps to what their expectations are, or what motivates them, or what their real needs are. And that really transcends all of those things. And I would also say, even too, if you understand the components of design, or the fundamentals of design, a lot of those things also translate. Like, I'll use an example of balance. The concept of balance as a designer, and I hope I'm not getting too nerdy here.
Bro, we got time. That's the nature of the program.
Well, that's true. Deep. You think about the concept of balance.
I was told I'm too chatty, but we did deep here. So go for it, buddy. It's different when you're talking, right? By the way. Just throwing shots over here. Just taking shots. That's all. I love you both.
Okay, so balance.
Balance, yes, balance.
So if you look at the principles of balance can help you both in just thinking about, does this line work with this shape and this text that I'm putting on a page? But it also the concepts of balance also translate to, how do you balance the needs of an employee with the needs of the business when you look at employee experience, right? And so there's some fundamental elements that can easily translate. And so a lot of my career has been looking for, where are those moments where I can easily take something from what I was doing here and then translate it into this new work.
Well, and also, I'm sure creativity, right? There's a skill set of creativity and being able to think differently.
Sure.
I think that applies to whatever form you're in. You look at, there's musicians that play guitar, piano, and, I'm searching for a third, harmonica, like my Uncle Ron, right? And there's artists that might do work in sculpture and drawing and painting, but they're utilizing creativity, form, a lot of the same artistic elements. So I guess when you talk about it that way, it kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
How have you, and we're going to get back to Gabby. Gabby, I promise, you're so patient. You know how I am. You've done this before. But how have you adapted your skill sets to evolve in that manner? Because I imagine the same skill sets that it took to do graphic design, you know, in Photoshop or whatever, isn't the same thing, isn't the same tools you're using now.
Yes and no. So I'll give you an example. PowerPoint, right? As a graphic designer, I designed a lot of PowerPoints. Well, even now I present a whole heck of a lot of PowerPoints. And so
okay, bro, time out. Jolene presented one of the most visually stunning PowerPoints I ever saw in Pittsburgh about 3 years ago. Do you take full responsibility for that?
No, I don't, because she is her own like PowerPoint presentation whiz. She's phenomenal. I definitely do not lay claim to that amazing skill set.
Okay, because it was fire. Okay, all right.
Yeah, she's amazing.
yeah, all right. But anyway, so you're saying how you adapt with the skill sets. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so there's definitely some things like that I find myself reusing from time to time. I think the biggest thing for me has been just a desire to understand people. And so that has really helped me with being able to make these jumps. I think the other thing too is this concept that a former employer used to preach to us all the time. And at the time it used to be sort of obnoxious. But once I started to really embrace it and understand it, it made a world of difference for me. And that was this concept of being uncomfortable. Being comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Mm-hmm. And being willing to put yourself into situations that are going to push the limits of your skill set and your knowledge. And it's going to be super messy, and you know, you might not get it all right, but put yourself into that and look for the opportunity to grow and help others.
Yo, I'm a big fan of that saying. I'm a big fan when I say it. I'm not a huge fan when other people tell me to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Right.
Because they're about to really piss me off and make me do something, or it's like, or stuff's really screwed up right now, and they're just trying to make me feel better about my own, you know, ambiguity around discomfort. You know, it's like,
oh yeah, it's totally different thing when you actually have to live it. And
for sure.
I still find myself super uncomfortable with a lot of different situations, and it is what it is. But that's also where you can find some of the most insightful moments, or the greatest moments of connecting with other people, or some of the coolest like new things that you could produce, right? So
for sure. And so when you joined Airs, your scope, your role was what?
So it was pretty focused on tech. And so I came in I before I joined Airs, I was actually a consultant for them, helping them to look at both product strategy and product design within their sorry, I was getting a phone call coming through on my computer. Getting them, hopefully you didn't hear that. Did you hear that?
Yeah, no. I heard you say, I'm getting a phone call on my computer.
Oh, okay. I had like Vonage doing this obnoxious ring.
No, I didn't hear the obnoxious.
I'm glad you didn't hear that.
That's anyhow, what the earphones are for, yeah.
That's right.
Sure.
So anyhow, I was helping them on the software side of things, and helping them start to go after some new approaches to how they could design and create software products. And then, you know, very serendipitously on literally, I think it was the same day, I got a layoff notice from that consulting firm, and I was having coffee with Jolene, and we're at this I think it was at a Starbucks, and we're sitting there having coffee, and I'm like, oh, please. And she's like, so what do you think about coming to work at Airs? And so like internally, I'm like, woo, yes, hire me, I'll start tomorrow. And,
externally, you were like,
I'm like,
I don't know.
That sounds interesting. I mean, so what do you have in mind, right? and
AKA, what's the comp and how fast can I start?
right. And so we had this really interesting conversation about how I'd been using design thinking to really help on the tech side. And she's like, what do you think about helping us take that and really continue to drive that, and focusing on our tech guys and continue to help that group, but then also maybe looking at opportunities beyond tech. And so, you know, absolutely, yes, I'd love to do it. And it wasn't just because I was desperate, but I mean, it
wasn't just, but there was
amazing opportunity, right? To be able to come in and help manage innovation for a company. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And I started literally 3 days later. So it was a pretty cool moment.
Sweet, sweet. That's awesome. And Jolene's over here. Thanks for the PowerPoint
Oh,
prompt.
she,
Yo, shout out to Jolene, also extremely bright person. Can't wait to hear her speak. Actually, quick plug for the IAM conference, International Association of Movers conference, coming up in October 21st through the 23rd. Jolene's going to be on an RMC panel discussion for everybody. So if you haven't registered yet for the IAM conference, please do that. She's going to be fantastic. Yeah, so can't
plug.
Nice. There you go. There you go. Awesome. So yeah, okay, so you came into AIRS in that capacity, and you've really been focused on, it sounds like, kind of design thinking.
Right. And so I help them kind of get into product design, or UX, another kind of way, I guess you could say, UX design. And
user experience.
User experience, right? And help them stand up a design team, help them start to stand up more of a product management team, and then help us start to also, at the same time, eventually starting to get into sort of the organizational components of how we did manage technology. And it was a really cool experience to go through, because it kind of opened up this door for me of a whole nother world that design could potentially impact. And that eventually kind of led more into what I do now, and that is working as a part of our HR team, interestingly enough, and really helping to work with teams and individuals and also clients in pursuing change in how they work and the things that they're producing. And so again, leveraging a lot of the kind of design principles, leveraging design thinking, leveraging that uncomfortable, that comfortable with uncomfortable mindset, right? And going in and helping people sort through all kinds of interesting problems. So
I'm always fascinated by the way companies, so like, for instance, you're talking about HR within an HR services company, right?
Yeah.
So I'm always fascinated by the way, an HR services company like an RMC what's their approach to HR. I'm always fascinated with the way a global mobility company handles their own internal relocations, right? And it's really interesting. So what have you found, or what can you share about some of that work you're doing, out of curiosity?
Yeah, so that it's funny, because that's actually been sort of one of the projects that I got pulled onto, was as part of the HR team. We've also been kind of in this journey of, and like I think many HR departments, you can very easily fall into this category of compliance driven. Mm-hmm. And so we've been on this journey over the last couple of years to also to kind of shift that to this more balanced approach, where yes, we have to deal with compliance, right? But also making sure that we're accounting for the human element. And so part of that was even rebranding what our HR team's name is, and we rebranded it to People X, and that stands for people experience, because we wanted the people in our organization to understand, that yes, that is really important to us, and yes, we are looking for ways to try to find that balance. And so that's kind of some of the journey that we've been on there as well.
Talking about mindset, I love what you're talking about here, because I've worked for organizations that are extremely compliance driven within their human resources function. And it's just like, Johnny, you were 6 minutes late back to your desk from break time. I mean, I was literally having to go get people who were like smoking a cigarette outside and be like, Johnny, you know what time it is, right? And then to the point where people had no HR and was like, give people whatever they need, just get the talent on board, we don't care, and just go for it, and they're obviously opposite ends of the spectrum. But I think it's very interesting to see the way that companies either manage by risk or by reward, right? Are you either kind of like scarcity or abundance? Are you more about making sure people don't do things, or making sure people do things, And I think that when you look at the way a company's mentality around that is, you can kind of tell where they're going from a growth standpoint. Are they more concerned with defending their position in the marketplace, or are they more concerned with going and gobbling up share and taking advantage of opportunities? For me personally, I obviously would, I think it's obvious, would prefer the latter. I'm looking for companies with high growth and they're doing exciting, audacious things in the marketplace. But it's interesting to see how that can come out of the HR function. We talk a lot of times to our HR practitioners on the show here, and just in socializing, who are within HR functions, and we talk about them being strategic and being more than just, reactionary administrators of policy and vendor managers, and being more strategic and getting a seat at the table and being upstream in the development of strategy and large scale business decisions. How have you seen, this is the last question on HR, I promise, but how have you seen, I mean, where are you in that, and how have you been, when I say those kinds of things, I mean, what kinds of ideas come into your brain?
So a lot of it is, I think, continuing to challenge how we're approaching things, right? I think that's fundamental to all of that. So the thing, this policy or this activity that we're doing or this approach that we're taking to this particular problem, is it solving the problem? Is it humanizing the situation, right? And so I think it's this constant analysis of that, and then you're tweaking accordingly, right? And it's certainly, and to kind of go back to the point that you mentioned, it's interesting to be sort of in an HR function within sort of an HR industry as well. And it's certainly given me a lot more insight to some of the client consulting that I've gotten engaged in.
Yeah, I got to think there's insights there that can be used on other parts of the business as well.
Oh yeah. So it's been a really kind of interesting thing to see how those things tie together, and then how can you then help provide better value in the service that you're offering. So
we've got some great comments coming in here. I want to just go check in with everybody, and then let's go back through some other things that I wanted to talk about here. And also, Chris, I mean, I'd love to just hear like what's on your brain, because, where I'm going might be one thing, but I'd love to hear just kind of what excites you and stuff. What are some of the problems you choose to think about, right? Sure. Victoria McCullough checking in from the DF Dub. What's up, Victoria? Ryan Watroba, greetings, Ben and Chris from upstate New York. Looking forward to today's conversation. Ryan, also, if you're a Ryan Watroba fan like I am, he will be on tomorrow along with 7 other YP40 chairs from Worldwide ERC. Big shout out to the YP40 10-year anniversary birthday celebration. Bring your party hats, your kazoos. We might be doing cake smashes, which is weird because we're in a solo type of environment, so that would require self-smashing. But whatever, anything goes on Love and Reload. So check out Ryan tomorrow, 4:00 Eastern. Georgia Angle, can't wait to hear about innovation. Yeah, if you got questions, I'd love to hear them. What's up, Janet? Tracy Barbosa, afternoon, everyone. Fernando, you've got to innovate every day in South America. Things change a lot. That's why it's important to get a good partner to work with. Do you see, how is innovation and the approach to innovation and the execution changed based on the culture, whether it be company culture, regional culture, national culture? Like, how is that? What is the relationship between innovation and culture, in your opinion?
I think it's pretty big. I'll use the example, actually. I think I started talking about this earlier, and then, as we, these typically go, we went this way and then that way, right?
And then I messed it up. Yeah, no, I get it.
No.
Happens all the time.
I made the comment about, I had this philosophical shift, and that was when I first joined Ayers. I had this moment where I was thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to bring my wisdom to this place and change them.
Wait till they hear what I have to say.
They're gonna conform to my will, right? And I think, and it was funny because I look back at that, I'm like, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Because it caused me for at least probably a good year or so to not pay attention to culture. And so I kept finding these situations where I kept running into roadblocks in how I was in relationships. I was running into roadblocks to just getting initiatives off the ground. And it was because I wasn't actually taking into consideration how important culture is to what you're pursuing. That's right. And so a concrete example of that was I went into it thinking, I'm going to put into Ayers this very structured, methodical approach to how we manage innovation and and it's going to be, tied to all of this, great thought, and people are going to get involved in it, and they're going to put all their projects through there, and it's going to work out great. And that approach really did not work because I didn't understand our culture. And our culture is very much one where we look for ways to empower anybody with an idea. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can do every idea, and that doesn't necessarily mean that every idea is right. But we tried to build an environment and a culture where people have the opportunity. And so what I was starting to realize at about 1 year in was I'm fighting against that system. And what I need to start doing is finding ways to support it and to potentially even enhance it. And so that then started to shift my perspective to say, how can I help people think rather than how can I get them to conform to this innovation process or whatever other thing that might feel like a good structure to force people into.
I love what you're saying here, and it's like, how do I help people think instead of giving them ideas? How do I get them to help them think? And I think smart people, when they enter organizations, run into this problem all the time because you have so many answers and you're just worried about getting them all out and getting other people to receive them, that we don't even take the time to listen and understand. And it's the same. I mean, this goes back to Dale Carnegie in the 30s, right? People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Until you've gone in and done the appropriate amount of discovery and earned the right to give that recommendation. Right. I mean, and the first thing we do, we come in, we're like, hey, I'm Ben Cross, and here's what you need to be doing with your company. It's like get out of here. Like, dude, bro, get out of here. We've been in business for 30 years. Like, get out of here. Like,
I think that was totally, indicative of the fact that I spent so much of my career in consulting. Right. And so I was used to coming in as the guy, that's going to solve all of our problems. And I think another part of it that I think was a misguided on my part by looking at it that way was I wanted us to try to focus on a discrete set of challenges and problems. Well, we were already doing that through our strategic plan, but we also, because of our culture, we enable then all these other things to happen if it makes sense. And so I think that approach, I'm glad that I was able to change it, because that approach can easily put you in a place where it sort of gets you to not care about the people in the process, nor take seriously the ideas that they have. And you can find that even just in a manager role, right? If you've got some people on your team, you can very easily find yourself in that place where you're saying, I want you to do it this way for these, myriad of reasons, period, do it, instead of saying, okay, I think what I have here is good, but I'm going to be open to, feedback, and I'm going to be open to what other people think and see if I can incorporate that into what we're doing.
I love this conversation. I love this conversation. And, but I also love these comments that are coming in, because the people are wild. Okay. I mean, no, it's not necessarily about you, although some of these are about you. Sometimes people are just out here peddling whiteboards in the DMs like, yo, I got 30 dry erase boards. I got them for cheap. What's up? Pay for shipping. I'll send you one. Rory, you send me a freebie. I will plug it and put a little call to action on it. It'll be great. We'll use Chris's marker, my whiteboard. It'll be amazing. Collab over there. We got Lynn Greenberg. Chris is incredible. Ask him how he problem solved with chickens. Go.
It's actually ducks, but that's okay, because I always call them chickens too for some reason. I don't know why I can't get out of my mind. So we decided that, because my wife and I, because this is normal, that we're stuck in a house all day with our kids, so let's try to do something different during COVID. And so we got ducks. and mind you, we live in a pretty urban area. Like, we have like a
where do you live?
So I'm in Pittsburgh, and
okay.
And we live in a suburb, but we live in the town, and so it's still pretty busy. And I'm surrounded pretty closely by neighbors, and we don't have a ton of room. And
don't worry, man. I see ducks crossing the street all the time. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Okay?
So we decided to get ducks, and it was funny because even from like the moment we got them, I felt like we were constantly having to rethink how we were doing things. And we just give you an idea. They poop so much, and even like when they're like this big, all they do is like eat and poop.
It just runs right through them.
Oh yeah, yeah. And so we went from having this like nice little like Tupperware box where they were stored in to suddenly this massive Tupperware box where they were stored in, and we kept having to like think differently about where they stored them. And at one point they were in our dining room, and finally we're like, we can't take this any longer, and so we put them down in the basement, and then eventually made it outside. So it's been sort of this wild ride of iteration and failure.
Iteration. There you go. I love it. I love it. What's the end game with the ducks? Are these for food, for fun, TBD?
DVD. Well, no, actually, we got them initially because we have a tick problem in our area because there's been a lot of new development, and so that's been sort of forcing all these crazy, weird ecological issues, and one of them being ticks and bugs. And so we didn't want to, because our kids are playing in the backyard, we didn't want to go spray it with all this crap, right? And so we decided, why don't we look at something a little bit more natural? And so my wife had this idea of the ducks, and again, we're COVID brain. We're like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And so we did.
Oh my gosh, man. Smart people are so peculiar. I tell you what, like, I'll be like, you know what? Ducks eat ticks.
Ducks.
So I'm assuming ducks eat ticks. You didn't actually tell me that. I just put two and two together. Ducks
well,
eat
we
ticks.
hope they do.
We don't even know. We don't, it's a theory at this point. We don't even know. Okay, great, awesome. Tell me how that works out. If it doesn't work out well, I've got an amazing Peking duck recipe. You'll love it. There's a duck hanging in your window for 48 hours, but you'll love it otherwise. Oh my gosh, Jennifer Anderson, great topic. Sounds like Chris helps everyone work smarter, not harder. I definitely want to talk to you about that as well. We got people checking in. Rob checking in from Cambridge at Wicked Smart in Cambridge. Leslie Batts for checking in from Silicon Valley. I almost thought that was Silicon Valley, Hawaii. It's not. Yes, you definitely need to get that mural money because Tracy Barbosa just signed up.
Nice. All right, mural payout.
Need a referral link for that. Mariela Benitez. Okay, we got a question here. Legitimate questions. Hey, we love legitimate questions. We're a little chatty on the program, so you can keep me on target. I appreciate that. Mariela says, how do you define the term innovation in a business perspective? Actually, you know what? I'm going to flip this question in my show. How do you define the term innovation in a non-business perspective?
So I think very simply, you could just say it's about creating something new that has value, right? And that could be something very simple, right? Like we bought a duck and it's eating our ticks, right? To something very transformational like Netflix, right? That totally disrupted a whole industry. But really, it's just about creating new value.
New value.
I usually go back to that description of it because I think it's pretty simple, and it's a term that I think people overcomplicate pretty easily. So
I love it. Simple's the most useful. Follow-up question from Mariella. Mariella, you hit your 2-question total, by the way. I'm going to have to put you in timeout. I love that. How do you balance the needs of an employee with the needs of the business? Ooh, that's a good one.
Good
People
question.
everywhere in Pittsburgh are watching this right
I know. They're like, what is he going to say? It's a lot of it really comes down to enabling a voice from them in the conversation, right? And so when we go after new things, what we like to try to do is make sure, do we actually understand what the problem is that the employee or the people, we like to refer to people as people, and as much as we can, we try to get away from that word employee, right? Because it's still kind of in that realm of human resources, right? And so we try to take this approach where it's saying, okay, the people that are involved, are we incorporating them? And so I'll give you one example. We've been looking at ways to revamp how we recruit for people. And so part of what we did was we actually spent time interviewing people across our organization, and not just your typical HR survey, but going beyond that and really getting into more of the qualitative conversations that are going to help you understand somebody's mindset or somebody's experience or somebody's environment, and then doing what we can to incorporate that in. And and it's not that you can always do everything that people say, right? But what we do is we try to extrapolate needs over wants, and then try to say, okay, in solving this business problem, how can we try to pull in some of the needs of our people at the same time solving the problem, right? And so a lot of it is just helping their voice to be a part of it, and in some cases too, when we can, pulling them in to help us create whatever that solution is.
So, man, we got some great comments here. I'm really trying to balance the needs of the commenters with my own needs here, with the needs of the show.
Good.
Oh, okay. When there's a tie, what do you choose? How do you choose, Chris?
You know, there's all kinds.
Needs the employees. There's a tie.
Yeah, I think I think more than likely, let's just be honest, the business usually wins, right? Because at the end of the day, you've got to make money. But I think as much as I can, when I'm helping people, I usually try to find, okay, is there some compromise that we can pursue here? And sometimes it's just as simple as looking at those two options and saying, okay, let's maybe go through one more prioritization approach. And that might then say, okay, maybe we look at what's the level of difficulty to implement this relative to the impact that it's going to have. And sometimes just having those kinds of conversations can also help you break the tie, if you will.
Got it. Love it. Jack, one of my favorite commenters here. Jack, thanks for being patient here. Jack Jampel says, do you mostly look at innovation from an RMC client perspective, or does it include your supplier partner client processes?
It does include them.
Imagine you said no. You're like, no, we do not include
no. we don't really like them. I mean, no. To
be seen and not heard. Speaking to the supplier.
That's right. Right. Who are they? No. No. We're really fortunate to have an amazing pool, really, of just a number of companies, and a number of them represented through this this channel, right? And where I think the approach that we've had, and granted, like at least I'll say the approach that I've experienced, and knowing this company, I'm sure it's been indicative of the years prior to that, is we treat our suppliers as partners, and we look to them more through that lens than vendor, right? And because it's very easy to take that vendor approach, but that really doesn't help you build relationships if you think about it, right? And when you think about the context of the relationship between RMC and supplier, is at the end of the day, we've got to come together and we've got to provide the best service that we possibly can. And so we very much try to look for opportunities to be able to really take that partnership approach. So one of the ways that I'll give you an example that we've done, and again, like anything, are we able to do that across the board 100% of the time? No. And am I doing that with everybody? No, right? But we've had some great opportunities, especially in the last couple of years, where we've gone into these very strategic conversations with our clients, and maybe they needed to do something different. And so actually recently, I wrote a blog post about fixing the initiation process and how important it is for companies to be evaluating how are they actually initiating mobility, because it has huge impacts on how all of us on more the supplier side are able to actually deliver. And
explain that just a little bit, unpack that if you don't mind.
Sure. So, you very often find, and I'll use the example of a larger company, right? A recruiter might be the one that actually is setting the expectations for a candidate as to what their mobility benefits will entail. But however, the challenge of the recruiter is they have to be really crafty in how they ask things, because you can't just ask somebody, hey, Ben, I know you're interested in this position right now, but I want to know more about your family. Right? I want to.
Right. Do you have any dependents?
Right. Are you a homeowner or a renter? Right. And so It's really left up to the savviness of that recruiter to be able to tease out that information and then align them with the right policy. And sometimes that's super easy, right? You might have situations where, okay, it's a student and we're always just going to give them a lump sum, done, move on. It's usually not that straightforward if you think about mobility, right? There's always these nuances that come up. And so one of the things that we found is that the more a global mobility team is integrated with how their recruiting operation is handling mobility, and that's training, that's also being consultative to those folks, that's also helping to work with business units to craft appropriate policies, right? The more that you see those kinds of interactions, the better your outcomes downstream are going to be. And if you take the example of a recruiter that maybe didn't get it right, and maybe they give somebody a renter policy, but they actually really needed them to have a homeowner policy, it's left up to usually like a mobility specialist at the RMC, or even sometimes there's other problems where like it might be the shipper that uncovers it, or it might be somebody else, right, that uncovers it downstream, and then you've got to go through the exception process and all of the red tape that can come with that. And so by saying, look at how you're setting expectations up front, it can have a profound impact on whether or not somebody has a good experience or not. And so to Jack's question, though, I don't know if I answered your question.
You didn't, but I loved it anyway.
So we do try to, when we can, try to pull in key partners with us into those conversations. And like two good examples, tax and immigration. Both of those are partners where, let's say, if you're working on an international assignment, right? It can be really beneficial to have those people engaged up front when you can, because they can help with some of those expectations, which could, depending upon where somebody's going, right, could be all over the place. And so we look for ways to better integrate each other in our process. We also look for ways to kind of co-solve some of those problems. And I keep saying that co-create, co-solve, and that's really a major theme in how we try to approach some of these situations.
People are really enjoying the comments here and the insights you're bringing to the table here. Every once in a while, I get thrown a bone as well. Can't really rival you here on the Ryan Reynolds look. It's got inappropriate, okay, guys? He's a person, people, right? Gee whiz.
I'll sign autographs later. Ryan Reynolds.
No, this is great. I did have a question though for you. Like, what do you think about? Like, I mean, we all are tasked with stuff at work, right, that we have to think about, right? And I'm a big fan of like discretionary effort, the concept of discretionary effort, and the stuff that people do when they can do anything. And you seem to have one of those jobs where you have a lot of latitude. And I mean, I might be wrong. People might always be putting the bat signal up and, Chris got to jump in the conference room, bam, with the cape on. But I feel like you sit in your office or home in front of the plant and you probably like ponder a lot. So what do you think about when you're pondering, plant adjacent?
Well, it first starts with putting the cape on, right? I got to have that on. It's like,
you're thinking cape.
It's how you do it, right? It can be all over the place, and I guess I'm gonna have to be careful that I don't disclose any secrets here. I do think it's both. I do spend a fair amount of time trying to think about where is that next thing going to come from, right? Because if you look at our industry, the model of our industry hasn't really changed, and that's not necessarily a good or a bad thing, right? And it's funny because I've heard people make comments at like ERC events or other industry events where like, oh, the RMC model needs to change. But I've also heard other people say, oh, I love the RMC model, it works, right? Or I've heard other people make comments like, I wish we did this thing better, or I wish we did that thing better, or I wish the service was more integrated. And so usually what I try to do is when I'm in those conversations, try to think about what's the underlying issue, because it's not necessary. I'll go back to the RMC comment. It's not that the RMC model is necessarily wrong. I mean, it's essentially a distribution model. If you boil it down to like super simple terms, right? It's essentially a distribution of services. And depending upon how you run your RMC, like we try to take this approach where we take it to the next level, and we try to approach it more from a concierge type approach, right? In how we handle it. That's not always the case, right? And also too, I think the fact that you also have this crazy demand for good technology to support every aspect of Relo. And the reality of that is there are discrete resources available to make that happen. And so you're always finding trade-offs, right? And so sometimes you run into situations like, I love when you guys talk about this because it cracks me up. You've got the portal, right? And the portal that everybody's got to go through. And sometimes that can be really good. Like if you think about a transferee, and if you think about a corporate client, the concept of have a single spot to go to is a very valuable thing in many ways. But if you think about
conceptually, it's valuable.
Yeah, but if you think about the partner side, though, I mean, I totally understand the pain there, right? Because you've got umpteen RMCs that you then have to, either find a way to integrate with, or you're finding a way to try to get all of your rates into, or all kinds of other information, right?
If y'all integrate with us suppliers and that information appears in your portal, awesome. If we send you an email and your people type it into your portal, awesome.
Right.
The problem becomes when you ask us to start doing double data entry, not saying errors, but I mean,
sure.
The RMCs ask suppliers to start doing double data entry. Well, oh, by the way, increasing your discounts, and doing more with less, and it's just anyway under the guise of automation, right? The mechanical turk in the background running around. Oh my God, I got to do the portal. I got to do the portal. I get emails about portals. It's just wild stuff. But.
It's true. And I think that's where that's a good example of one of those things where I try to, and the folks that have been on my team, I try to get them to think about what's the underlying problem and what are people not saying and what might be actually motivating them maybe to even say the things that they're saying, because that's usually where the real problems are.
How often do people know what the problem is, and how often do they not know what the problem is?
I think surprisingly enough, I do think people know. They can identify the problem, but I think identifying the problem and articulating it and understanding it is a whole nother part of it. And that's usually where I find more of the work I do to help people.
So what's that biggest block between, okay, I know what the problem is, maybe I can't quite articulate it, but what's the biggest hurdle between knowing what the problem is and solving it that you usually have to come in and just kind of pluck out of the equation?
It's usually perspective, right? Because we default to, I'm going to look at this thing through my perspective, right? And
i.e. the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what our perspective is, the way we've always done it.
Right. And you think about mobility, there's literally like nothing that we do that doesn't involve at least like 20 other people, right?
Yeah.
And so
big drum circle. Yeah.
Right. And so if you're not taking into consideration that you've got all these other perspectives and skill sets and people that have to do work in that process, it's not going to be successful.
We got a couple of quick questions here. We're going over time. I see people already leaving to go to the pub here, but I appreciate the faithful that have stuck around. Give yourself a like, hit that celebration. Give yourself a round of applause. We're on the home stretch, I promise. You're hanging in there, right? Leslie Batsford, shout out to you. Question, has the relocation industry considered integrating mentorship connections into their programs, thus ensuring that a skill gap doesn't prevent the right person from getting into the right place? Chris Roberts, please answer this on behalf of the relocation industry.
Yes and no. I think mentorship is such a, I think, a difficult thing to do right. I mean, because let's be honest, I think we all go into mentorship with this very idealistic perspective of, we're going to do mentorship. We're going to find people that are going to share their wisdom. It's going to be great. People are going to grow and it's going to be amazing. The reality of it is usually the people who are mentoring are the ones that are the busiest and have the most demand on them. And so they may go into it with great intentions, right? But in reality, they may not actually be able to meet the commitment that they said.
Yeah. And so often it's so forced, right? Where you're trying to maybe take someone who you think is really smart and take someone who you think is high potential and you say, if I could just mind meld them and do this knowledge transfer and engagement, then all of a sudden this person's now this person can go retire, do whatever they want to do, or go to the next assignment. And
Right.
now this person is that person and I'm good, right? But it's like, but to your point, these people are human beings and they're puzzle pieces with lots of little ridges and stuff, and they don't always fit. I mean, I one time I was mentored by 6 people consecutively, or concurrently at a company, and it was just like the biggest car wash I've ever been in. It was
Well,
ridiculous.
and I think the other thing about mentorship, I apologize, Leslie, I don't know if we're necessarily answering your question, but I think the other thing that's interesting about mentorship is people often forget that really to get something out of mentorship, it's up to the mentee to pursue that, right? And I think that's where a lot of mentorship programs also fail, because people go into it with maybe this perspective that I don't know what the right perspective is, but I think they go into
say, okay, I'm here for the lesson. Teach me.
Right. Right. Like I'm owed this. And that's where I think it also sort of fails, because no, you actually have to bring things to the table. You actually have to come with questions. You have to come with problems. You've got to come to that person with that information. I do think, though, to actually answer your question, Leslie, though, I do think that we're starting to see, even just some improvements by, you just look at content that's actually available in this industry. And I think that's why I really love, Ben, what you do, and some of the other people that I'm starting to see who are putting out great content. And that content is starting to help open people's perspectives and helping us to understand better parts of our industry. I mean, I feel like every day I'm learning something new about this industry. Mm-hmm. And LinkedIn has been a phenomenal source for that. We also do try to integrate this kind of stuff too in what we do at AIRS. But I do think that the vast majority of the times where we find it most successful is when we make sure that the mentee understands their responsibility in this as well.
Yeah, I love that. Great stuff here. Let's see here. Janet Olkowski talking about so important to treat your suppliers as partners or vendors. They are the quote face of the RMC, and they are the experts in their respective fields. Mutual respect is key. I think suppliers are so underrated. The knowledge. I mean, think about this. I mean, the using HR analogies, the RMC is the generalist, and then the service providers are the specialists. And there's so much knowledge that exists at the supplier level because they're boots on the ground. They're out there and getting all this information and everything and expertise. And yet I feel like as a supplier, there's so much untapped knowledge base and so much strategy, tactics. I mean, just everything that could be deployed. And I don't know why it is, but the clients and the RMCs to some extent, but and maybe it's because there's this like fear of salespeople, but like I feel like there's so much to give out there that it's just what are your thoughts around that, Chris?
Yeah, I do think that we could, as an industry, we could do better, right? And that's, I alluded to kind of some of the approaches that we take. We definitely do try to look for a way to be able to leverage the expertise that is there. And if you look at the role of a mobility specialist, right, that counselor that's working with a transferee, there's no way you could expect that person to know everything about everything within Relo, right? And so it's more so, I think, about helping to align the right people with the right skill sets at the right time to make that relocation or assignment happen and in the best way possible. And so I think it definitely has to be this, so almost like you could say it's like this mutual trust of the people involved and looking for ways to capitalize on that trust and find the right balance. So
cool. One last question here, Jamie. I didn't forget you, buddy. Jamie, has working remotely affected how AIRS handles GDPR security?
Yes and no. I mean, I think
Interpol's coming for you. Just be careful.
That's right. That's right. I'm being tracked by NSA and a couple of other sources. And yes and no. I think from I'll do the no side first, and then I'll do the yes side. The no side is we've been we've been pretty fortunate because we've invested pretty heavily on the data security front, and we have a phenomenal team that has helped us put into place a number of different protocols to help us protect the information that we deal with. And we've also been able to garner a number of really important ISO certifications around that. And so we've got a lot of things in place to help us already be ready for that. But that said, there's also so many new problems that you start to bubble up right once you have a workforce completely remote. And so it's sort of like our team has been sort of on this journey of finding where are those loopholes, and let's be proactive about them and find them. And so they've done a phenomenal job with that. I think part of it is also just helping just to even just coach people a little bit about what are the right ways of managing information when you're at home, right? And I think that's the thing you're gonna have no matter where you are. And if customer service is a big part of your team, like I had a call with an insurance agent the other day, and I could totally tell that this guy was sitting in his living room and his kids are like screaming in the background. The whole time I kept thinking, I'm like, I do not want to give you my personal info.
You're going to write it down on a slip of paper that your son's going to bring to school in his book bag with his homework, Right.
And so there's definitely things like that where, we look for ways to help coach our counselors to make sure that they're doing things right. And even just reinforcing the protocols and things that we've put into place, and making sure that just because you're now here and you're not in an office doesn't mean that those things go out the window. And so we've been pretty fortunate to be able to kind of, I think, be ahead of the game on some of that. So
awesome. Amy checking in. What's up, Amy?
Hey,
Super
Amy.
Chris. People love the Super Chris idea.
I'm totally changing my LinkedIn picture to like have a cape and like I'm gonna look off to the sunset.
Yeah, and it's like flapping behind you.
I'm gonna have to superimpose Ryan Reynolds' face on my body too, and then
and in one hand a big stack of Post-it notes. Yeah. Is the future Post-it notes for brainstorming? Holly asked. Is that the future or the past? Go.
It's sort of the future. I think that the digital Post-it is the future, right? The digital Post-it, the digital whiteboard.
Love it. People are loving the mural thing. Seems like Chris is almost a therapist. Janet says. That's great.
Sometimes.
That's great. This is wonderful. People are leaving lots of great comments there as well. Love it. Lindy checking in, saying what's up.
Hey, Lindy. Love Lindy. She's awesome. She's going back to content. She's somebody who has a lot of great content that she puts out. And I've learned a lot from her, just some of the podcasts that she's had and LinkedIn Live sessions where she talks to the actual person that went through that relocating real estate experience. And it's been really insightful. So
what are some of the content creators that you recommend to people that are watching this right now?
Okay, so I think Lindy's one of my favorite. There's Roman. I think puts out a lot of great content. And I've learned a lot from him about how to leverage LinkedIn. I also think there's this really cool person that I recently got to meet. Her name's Erica Young out of the UK, and Erica has done a lot of studying on networks, social networks, and trying to understand how to leverage that within the business context. It's definitely like a level of geeking out that maybe not everybody would be into, but I've learned a lot of really interesting stuff from Erica's stuff.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Everybody that checked in, this is awesome. Hey, real quick, before y'all go, if you're watching this right now, I want you to remember two things, okay? We've got 2 more episodes of Love and Real this week, and they are smashing, okay? We got the 10-year YP40 anniversary where we're bringing back all the old YP40 chairs. We're going to hear from the beginning, soup to nuts, cradle to grave, rooter to the tutor. We're going to hear from everybody, okay? It's going to be fantastic. And then Friday, we have $500 best trivia ever. Show the people the Post-it note of the future. $500 best. Yeah, there you go. You're my Post-it note model. That's awesome. $500. We're giving it away for real money, US dollars. And it's going to be free to play. Everybody can play. You don't have to be, on screen like Chris. You can be sitting at home doing whatever, right? Playing with the kids, whatever. And it's all going to be on Kahoot. If you have kids right now going to school remotely, you probably know what Kahoot is, but it's basically just like an app that you download and allows you to play trivia, just like you're at the bar on Thursday night. Okay. So go ahead and download Kahoot.it, get yourself ready. Tanya Maritini from Expedia Group and I are going to be hosting it live on Friday for $500 to the winner. I hope to have 1,000 people play. This is not just confined to mobility people. So get your friends, get your colleagues, put it on your Facebook, do whatever. You can go find the links to it on the event is posted actually on Move for Hunger's page on LinkedIn, or you could just tune in to Love and Reload on Friday. But make sure you share that with people. Chris, before we let you go, I'd love to just hear kind of a final thought from you around just, what are some of the things people should be thinking about, or could you just leave us with a final word?
Yeah, I think some of the things that we should be thinking about is I think being a lot less focused on what's that new thing, or what's that new software innovation, or what's that new product, or what's that new service that we're going to be launching, and being much more focused on how am I working with other people. And we spend a lot of time in this day and age talking about things like inclusiveness, and this is a really big part of inclusivity in just inviting people to the table and hearing their thoughts and incorporating that into what you do, and bringing them along with you. And I think the more that we take that approach, the more and more it's going to then yield those opportunities to create new products, to launch those new services, and to do those, I think, more transformative things that everybody wants to do in the first place. But you can't do it alone. You gotta work with people, and you gotta go together.
Love it. That's a great word for everybody. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Hit that celebration icon, hit that heart, send Chris some love. Thank him for being here. Chris, it's been an honor. Thanks so much for coming by.
Me too. Thank you. Really excited to be here.
Take care, everybody. See y'all tomorrow.
See ya.